Valve has announced the cost of Steam Direct, which will be $100 for a developer to get a game on Steam, and they've also announced some changes to the Steam Curator system, which they sound like two completely different topics, but they actually go hand in hand, which is a fairly interesting discussion. Michael here with another topic video. So Steam Direct, if you don't know what Steam Direct is, basically it is a replacement for Steam Greenlight, and instead of having a game kind of have to earn some sort of curation onto the platform, which has been heavily exploited up to this point, or it just introduces a situation to where, like before Greenlight, to where basically there's a whole entire genres that are just missing because Valve employees don't necessarily think it has a marketplace, when it definitely does, such as the visual novel. Instead, it's just a direct buy-in. So basically, you pay $100. Apparently, this $100 will also be reacquirable. And so basically, this is probably going to be through things like, let's say, sales and interest figures. And so basically, if you're driving people onto Steam or to your product page, they'll be like, all right, you know what? Here's your $100 back. You've earned it. And so basically, yeah, because their entire target of this isn't just to kind of block people off of using the platform. In fact, they want to do the opposite. They want people to actually be using the Steam platform. However, they are noticing kind of sale dips and everything like that. And I've mentioned this on other topics before, to where they just are losing sales off of these terrible games and a bunch of scams. And they've actually kind of ruined their reputation that they spent years kind of building up to be a quality platform, because they have all these titles that are kind of scams. They're just there to make a quick buck, and they're actually scamming people out of their money, which isn't cool. And they're exploiting these systems that Valve does not want them to be exploited, and they're kind of ruining all their analytics and everything, which is definitely not a good thing. And if you want to hear more about my thoughts on that, I did a video on when they announced Steam Direct, and I talk in depth about how they sort of exploit the system and everything like that. But moving on, $100. Does this sound like enough? Does it not sound like enough? Now, to me, this didn't sound like enough when I originally heard the system. They were saying they were talking about $100 to $5,000. And I'm like, all right, it has to be somewhere on the higher end. Even though I know that there are some developers that would not be able to afford it, I was also worried about scammers. However, now I definitely feel like $100 is enough, because the buy-in price is not exactly what they're going at, because they did mention that they were going to go for $500, but they actually got some resistance, not only from developers, but also from players as well. There are a lot of games on Steam that may not even make $100. However, there is a market for them. Or there's developers that may not be able to pay the $500 price, but they have an amazing title that they want to get out there, and then that title will end up being a bestseller. And so basically, yeah, they were like, hey, we don't want to block everyone else. So basically, Valve's like, all right, you know what? We'll go with the lowest possible amount we can, because they couldn't think of a good reason not to. And so they're doing it. And the reason they're able to justify this is because of everything else they're doing. They're working on their software end, and they're trying to fix everything from a sort of, I guess, under-level kind of solution. And so basically they're looking at everything and being like, all right, well, why are people into these kind of scam games in the first place? Well, if no one ever sees them, then no one will ever buy them. And so Valve is like, hey, you know what? We're going to make it so it's no longer profitable for these guys to make these kind of scams. And so basically they're going around the route of basically making it so it's impossible to find them, or making it so that you can't actually, you know, purchase them onto Steam in several different ways. And so it's a really interesting discussion to where they're not necessarily going to use this buy-in price. You know, they're not making it like an itch.io kind of situation to where literally anybody can just post anything, because that would be bad for the storefront. That would overcrowd it, and it would run into a lot of problems. But they need some sort of entry fee, and $100, while it doesn't sound like enough, a lot, it is enough to kind of run into a situation to where, hey, yeah, it's going to cost you something. It's $100 per game. The current system is $100 per a sort of greenlight developer. And so basically, if they wanted to input new games onto Steam, they just have to pay that $100 once, and then they get to kind of submit as many games as they want to. And this allowed scammers to kind of make a buck eventually, because that's the way the world works. Eventually, they were able to make a profit. And so, yeah, not 100% the best kind of solution. But this time, it's $100 per game, which is definitely going to help with that. Now, the Steam Curator changes is also going to assist with this. In the sort of way that they've been going around this, they've been talking about kind of making it so that they can't make profit. One of the major changes to this is trying to make games more difficult to find for them. But if you actually make it so that niche games are harder to find, because inevitably when you're actually changing the system for this, you are going to make it harder for certain niche titles to be seen, because they maybe don't have like hundreds of people following it and everything like that. And so maybe there's some curator that is going to follow these types of games, and they're trying to make it so that these curators can actually look at these. And so basically they're introducing new curator tools. Are going to make it so that it has more awareness onto the storefront, like it kind of did near launch, I assume. Around launch, if you weren't there for the curator launch, they basically had a front page little icon that showed kind of the top curators, and it had a bunch of different curators randomly showing up on there. And I thought that was a really cool idea, but they ended up removing it because of a lot of issues that we're running into with the curator system. but they're supposedly updating it now. They're making it easier to actually have submissions. They're making it easier to link media. They know that people basically have YouTube, Twitch, and all those types of platforms, and so they're trying to integrate it as well. And so I think that's a really good step. Now, I don't necessarily know if this is going to solve the problem. I'm definitely going to try and be more active on my Curator. Whenever I get time, I try to put in a few little extra recommendations. I only do recommendations now that I actually have videos on, and so basically if I have a video on it, I'll try and have a recommendation up there eventually, and it'll be like, hey, I recommend it, or I don't recommend it, and it'll have a small little thoughts and a link to my media. And that's a way that I can kind of look at it and be like, hey, you know, if somebody likes my sort of thoughts and everything, they can end up looking at that and being like, oh, well, he checks out mostly good games, and so basically I'll check out his thing, and if it says recommended, maybe it's going to be worth a shot to end up looking at it. And that's kind of the whole entire goal of the Curator system. We don't know much about the changes because they literally just announced them, but for the most part, I think there's going to be a good shift, and the Curators have been kind of needing a sort of update for a very, very long time, and they've been talking with a lot of different people to try and figure out how it can be better. And this change probably won't end up being all that large. It'll probably just be a small little update that ends up kind of fixing up a few little things and definitely making it a lot easier to sort of manage on the Curator end, but that is definitely needed because right now to make a recommendation, I have to go into a Steam group, I have to go in and actually select an individual game, I have to select it from a list, I have to type it in, I have to link my media, and even then, in order for people to find it, they have to actually know exactly where to find my link and everything like that, and it's a kerfuffle, and it's not very easy. If I want to go in and edit it, I have to go into the review, I have to go back into it, go into edit, and then go into edit, comment, and then edit media individually. I can't do them both at once. And so, yeah, the entire system needs an overhaul in the way that you even make curations, because the more difficult you make it for a platform, you know, let's say like YouTube, for example, it's so easy to upload to YouTube. Now, it's not necessarily easy to set up SEO like a lot of us do, but for the most part, it's very easy to upload a video to YouTube. If you want to upload it, you literally just click and drag. As long as you're logged into a Google account, you have your video uploaded. And so having it easier and easier to actually have this sort of Curator system is going to be important for them. Now, this isn't the only change they are doing. They've done other changes, such as the sort of Steam trading card system, where you actually have to unlock Steam trading cards as a developer. And so basically, a developer won't launch a game for the very first time on Steam and then have to like go in and be like, oh, well, I have this thing. What the heck is going on in the background? I have no idea what I'm doing in this game. Welcome back. Something about... Okay. I have no idea. It just went on. All right. Well, I am playing live in the background, by the way. That is not just footage going on. That is just literally me playing the game, and I have no idea. It's slime sand, by the way. Talk about it at the end of the video. Anyways, as I was saying, it's kind of important to make it so they can end up having this curation system, and hopefully this works. And it's not the only thing they have in the works. So they have the Steam trading card system where developers have to actually unlock Steam trading cards, which they haven't announced exactly how it's unlocked, but I think for the most part it's based off of sales and interest figures, and I have a feeling that's how they're actually going to like refund $100 as well. I can see like developers unlocking tiers in the future, and so it'd be like, oh, well, you're just on Steam, so you're a rookie, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, you've made this sort of interest. I keep doing the same exact thing over and over again. And basically it'll be like, oh, well, now you're noteworthy or something like that, and then you'll end up unlocking more features. And that would actually be an interesting system, and I think it would kind of work for certain developers. Obviously, it doesn't really work for AAA, and we don't know how this is going to work for AAA as well. Are they going to need to do this $100 buy-in? Probably not. There's still going to be certain developers that probably have a sort of low-key, but definitely their sort of advantage, because basically Valve knows who they are, and they could release terrible games and people will still buy them, and that is sort of marketing and everything like that, and they don't want to knock out like high-quality developers because basically they'll run into, or high-quality publishers? AAA publishers is the word I was looking for, apologies. And so basically they'll look into that and be like, oh, well, I don't want to necessarily knock them out because they make us a lot of money, because yes, they'll publish some games that are completely broken, and while I do wish it would kind of affect them as well, because could you imagine Assassin's Creed Unity, which released in a completely broken state, just releasing, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, by the way, yeah, you don't get your $100 back because your game's completely broken. That would be hilarious, but hey, there we go. So for the most part, it probably won't affect too many people, I don't think, but I think in the overall kind of census, I think this is going to be a definitely great push, and I think $100 is definitely a good price as long as they keep this up. And the Valve did say they do have other changes in the routes, and so if they end up changing things in the right order and changing it for the rights, and they basically make sure that nobody can exploit it, that's actually really, really good. And I think this is definitely a positive push. And Valve did say that they're going to have some people looking into sort of making sure everything's curated properly and making sure the algorithms are working, which quite honestly, they shouldn't be announcing that they're going to do that. They should already be doing that, and that should be assumed, because if they want their algorithms to work properly, they need to monitor it, and they shouldn't be relying on their users to actually curate all the content, because, quite frankly, users are not always the best people to be curating your content. Sometimes, yeah, sure, and there's definitely genres that Valve would never have let onto Steam because they never knew it was going to be a profitable sort of solution or a profitable genre to actually have on there. Once again, visual novels, things like small simulators and things like that. Like, there's a lot of small, interesting games that maybe never would have ended up being on Steam, but thanks to the greenlight system, it was, which is actually quite fantastic. And I think this new system, since there is a situation to where people have just stopped using greenlight, I actually think that this new system will actually invite more games, because there are still games that are stuck in greenlight. There are games that haven't been quite finished yet that are stuck in greenlight because they don't have a finished product, and they have to look somewhere because they're like, oh, we're almost done with development, but we haven't gotten through greenlight. What do we do now? Like, they're probably panicking because they have to find a way to sell their product without Steam. And Steam has become such a huge part of our industry that basically you kind of have to be on Steam to be anyone. And so if they're not able to get on Steam, then what are they going to do not being on the biggest PC platform? And so, yeah, it's a little terrifying. But yeah, hopefully this all works out. And I'm obviously going to be watching it like a hawk. Like, I have the whole sort of kind of ideal kind of price point and everything like that for Steam Direct. I've been watching everything that they've been doing to change things, because I really like kind of Steam. I kind of like Steam's sort of discoverability and everything like that. I like being able to go on there and being like, I want to find a new random game. And I'll be like, oh, this game looks interesting, and I've featured a few of them on here. Are they all good? No, but they've been at least decent. I haven't checked out any games that have ended up just being complete scams, so that's actually quite fortunate. But every once in a while, you'll find this little gem, and it'll be like, oh, wow, this is fantastic. I never would have known about this game if it wasn't for Steam Direct. And there are several games that maybe I didn't hear about from even AAA developers that I didn't hear about. And then I find it on Steam's discovery system, which is absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And it was really interesting seeing a lot of developers and gamers both kind of writing into this whole idea of what the price point should be. And it's kind of unfortunate that it wasn't higher for certain cases, because I am still worried about the whole idea of sort of scammers being able to still kind of make profit with it only being $100. I am really, really worried about that. But I'm going to go ahead and hold my doubts until it actually releases and we see what happens. It'll obviously take some time for everything to kind of even out, but I'm having high hopes. I think Steam is in a really good direction, and they've been actually going in a really good direction for the last year or so now, especially with things like, you know, having, let's say, refunds, for example, which have probably definitely helped with the whole scammer situation and everything like that. Being able to refund those games has definitely hurt them in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, I think it's a good thing, and I'm really excited for the changes. So, yeah. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this one. I apologize if my voice sounds a little bit different this time. My voice has been basically dead for the last, week or so. I really killed it when I did that live streaming, and I also have not been 100% feeling well with my kind of voice and everything like that, so I've been pretty quiet lately, which is why there haven't been very many videos, but I apologize for that. Anyways, the game in the background is Slime Sand. This is a game I'm currently working on a review for, but I did do a checking out of it. There's a lot of problems with this game, and I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to be able to recommend it yet. It's a good game, and I enjoy playing it to a certain extent, but there's so many problems with it. I'm just like, I need to yeah, so I don't know. If you're thinking about picking it up, do wait for my review. It should be out in the next few days. I'm having trouble going through and actually finishing the game. One, it's fairly challenging. It is on the more sort of side of Twitch platformers. It's not like a really, really challenging game, and it's not going to be impossible for anyone to ever finish, but it is one of those games that does get progressively more difficult. So I'll probably end up doing the review before I finish the game, just because I'm at a point now to where it's every time I play it, I feel like it's a chore, and that's not necessarily what I want to do. And my reviews are more about, hey, how long is a game enjoyable for? So yeah, I've kind of overstayed my welcome on this one, I guess. But I don't know, I'm going to try and finish the game before I get to review time, which is in a few days. So hopefully I can end up doing a little bit more on that. But yeah, go ahead and check out that video if you're interested. Anyways, leave your thoughts in the comments as well. If you end up thinking $100 is too cheap, then go ahead and leave those thoughts, or vice versa. Or maybe you should think there wouldn't be a cost at all, which would be interesting if they went an itch.io sort of situation to where they're just yeah, you know what? Anybody can put a game up, which I think would be kind of cool. I think there's definitely a lot of benefits to that, but also there's a lot of super concerns, and I think scammers would get away with it because of all the systems that Steam has in place to actually earn money, like Steam trading cards, for example. You can actually, developers can earn money from Steam trading cards, and if a free game gets trading cards, you know what happens? It still makes money. And so Yeah, although I don't think if a game is completely free, it has trading cards. I'm not 100% sure on how that works, so I don't know. I might have to look that up a little bit later. But yeah, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Leave your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. I really hope my voice goes back to normal in the next few days, and it is starting to hurt a lot right now, so I should probably stop talking.